This is the rudder assembly off of the 1982 Montgomery M17 that I picked up recently. And the tiller is pretty much rotten. It's pretty much shot. And the wooden part of the rudder assembly here has got some places in it that's rotten. On the other side, it's worse than this side. Anyway, I'm going to take it apart and see if it's worth repairing or if I just need to make a whole new piece here. I think that long term I'm going to probably order a Ruddercraft rudder for this boat, but in the meantime I'm going to fix this up so I can at least use the boat until I get around to doing that. So I'm going to see what I can do here. It may actually be worth repairing, I don't know. We'll see. It's a little bit rotten right here in the head of it up here. And while I do like to try to repair and use things whenever possible, sometimes it's kind of beyond being practical. And quite often with varnish, that's the case, to scrape most of it off first. Yeah, that's just a rough sanding. This front edge is probably perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. And this in here is all good. But again, the problem is from here to about here is good. And then right here, it starts getting a bit dotty. Probably down to a 1/4 inch deep, maybe 3/8 inch deep. So I really think I can take care of that with just, putting in a splice. The head of it here is right in that corner, about a 1/2 inch deep. That's where 2 screws were right there that had pulled out and water had got in around those screws. But I really think it probably can just be repaired. This is my outside table saw here. I use it most of the time just because it's convenient and keeps all the sawdust out of the shop. I normally keep it covered with that piece of plastic back there. But you can see it still gets rusty, so spray it down every once in a while with some WD-40 and wipe it down. But it serves its purpose. It's a cheap table saw and it works for out here. But I'm getting ready to, I'm going to rip off a 1/2 inch off of this trailing edge right here on this Montgomery 17 rudder head here. It's amazingly that this thing is not rotted away, because it was literally laying in water for 6 years, water and pine straw mixture. But it's in surprisingly better shape than I would have ever thought it would have been. I've got just the tiniest little bit right here that has splintered off right here, and so water's gotten around that end grain right there. So there's a little bit right there that's not exactly rotten, but it has separated into like a splinter right there, where that feather edge from that piece right there runs out to a feather edge, and it just splintered right there just a little bit. So I want to get rid of that. And then up here at the top of it, or the head of it, where some screws were at right here, it got just a little bit dotty right around those screws, and the screws had pulled out. Right around the screws kind of deteriorated a little bit. But it's actually solid. But the biggest problem I've got is right here. And as you can see here, you know, it's cracked all the way across, and that piece is going to come out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run it through the table saw, and I'm going to take off a 1/2 inch right down this trailing edge right here, and epoxy a piece of mahogany back on right here, and that will eliminate that feathered edge on that outer edge there, and it'll give me a way to kind of lock all that in right there. And it's really not rotten. I thought it was going to be rotten right in here, but it's not. The little bit of wood deterioration was just where I sanded took it away, and now it's down to, you know, good solid wood. And I've probed it, you know, with like a razor blade and checked here and there. It's really not that bad. But that by scarfing in that 1/2 inch strip right here, that'll solve all this problem right here with that feathered edge splintering off and all that. And then I'm going to take off a 1/2 inch or maybe 3/4 of an inch across the top right here, and put a piece across here as well. And then that will take care of that exposed end grain here, as well as reinforce, you know, where this pivot hole's at. And then I'm going to drill this out, and then hopefully that'll solve the problem. My boats get played in by my grandchildren more than they get sailed. Say hello to the camera, boys.
Hello!
Whoa, I got that on camera.
Block the gate. No. Close it. Run the door.
They go from boat to boat. About 5 grandsons.
How did they get up there? Yeah, that's how. We live up here. We live up here. We are the animatronic king. I am the boss here. Hey, he's an animatronic king. Get him out. I'm an animatronic. Wait, someone unblock me. Oh, you can't. No. Yeah, let's just unlock it and open it. I am the No. What on? I shot you in the head and you got out. Oh! I'm the ultimate. I can't die. Let him out.
Now, if you can see there,
I will kill you.
it's not rotten at all. It's not rotten at all. Got that ripped and sanded. Got this ripped and sanded a little bit. And I'm going to just dry fit it with some small screws here that I'll take out later. And here I'm running a screw through that feathered point there back to where it's a little bit of thickness to it so it won't split. And this down there just like that. Now I'm going to just take and cut this off. This needs to come out right here anyway, where it has that chunk right there of that end grain is split right here. That's got to come out anyway. So I'm going to cut this off right across here, and then take some more of this and run it right back across there just like that, and just make a new end there, cover up that end grain, and then I'll drill this out, and I'm going to clean out anything that's left there and fill this all in with thickened epoxy, and then re-drill my hole there. And maybe I took out that piece that was cracked there, and there was a screw right there too that was just a little bit rotten right around the screw. So I drilled all that out and got down to where I'm confident that I'm beyond the rot that was in there, right there. And all that'll get filled with epoxy now. And then this here will just be capped like this. And then once the epoxy cures, then I can re-drill my hole through the epoxy. And to turn the heat on for a while, warm it up a little bit in here. It's a little bit too cold for doing epoxy work. But hopefully I've got it warmed up enough. And I'm going to pre-wet everything and then mix up some thickened and put a thin layer of a thickened before I put it all together. And I want to be sure to wet out inside this hole here that I drilled out. And I am going to be coating this whole thing with epoxy, just saturating it in thinned epoxy later. So I don't care if I get a little bit of epoxy on it here and there. But it is soaking it up. Okay, so I'm going to just add a little bit of thickener to this. And I do have on my dust mask in here using this colloidal silica. Okay, a whole lot of that's going to squeeze out, but that's okay. And I'm not over tightening these screws, I'm just barely snugging them up because I don't want to starve that joint. I want it to have some decent amount of epoxy in that joint. Put the end cap on. Almost forgot I needed to put my thickened here. And here I've got to work it into those screw holes a bit. I do have little spacers under this thing to keep it off the table just a little bit, and I also have the holes taped off on the back. But with this thickened here, I want to make sure that I get this hole here packed full where I drilled it out down in there. Okay, so I got it one coat of epoxy on all sides, and I've got all of the cracks filled, and it's already starting to soak in and kind of look at drying spots, which is not a bad thing. We're soaking into the grain of the wood good, and I got that hole there packed nice and tight with thickened epoxy, primarily colloidal silica with just a touch of fairing compound in it to give it a little bit of color. First coat of varnish. Several more to go. I'm putting this rudder back together this morning. I had cored that right there with thickened epoxy, So I had to drill my hole back through it. Of course, it's covered with dust. Been out here for a while. I think I'm gonna go get some life caulk and bed this stuff in to try to keep water from getting down in around these bolts. Gonna be a little bit messy, but I think it might be worth the trouble. Okay, I got the rudder back on. Still got to run my lines for raising and lowering it. Got to put a couple of like jam cleats up here, that kind of thing. But hopefully that'll work okay. It is weighted. It's actually pretty heavy. So I just put a stainless washer there for now. And then just a big stainless nut, nylock nut. And then whenever I put my pin in there, right now I just got a little bolt stuck in there just temporarily. I've got to get me a proper size pin, and that'll keep this from lifting. And that'll solve the issue with it popping out. I know that it has popped out with somebody in the past, because I had to straighten out this bracket right here. Was bent, and it was obvious that what had happened is this thing had lifted at some point in time and picked up and kicked back like that and had bent that right there. So I've got that straightened back out, and now with that spacer in there, that should solve that problem. I just have to remember to keep me one or two of those in the boat for when I'm rigging the boat. I've always got one.